Hello, Robs. We're back with The Making of a Vampire, Paracelsus, Rabbi Loew, Saint Germain, Dracula by Alexander Şendrea, 1982. And we return to page 28, where he was talking about the best asset of his library, but I don't know if he ever gets into it. We'll see. However, when I look back to those years, I must confess that the most valuable benefit I got from those good elders was something else, their stories. They remembered many things that had been told to them by other elders several decades ago when they themselves were small children. I am not sure if all those stories were true, but in general, I do not suspect the elders of lying. Old people do not usually lie. They know better than many what saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. They simply tell what they know, whether real or imaginary. It belongs to the listener to separate the latter from the former. What I really learned from them is what in turn I put in this account. Besides listening to the legends of the vampire, I read, of course, the famous book of Bram Stoker, the writer who put Dracula in worldwide circulation. Stoker is dead now, and I will respect his opinion about Dracula, whether some readers would like it or not. Stoker was a Christian and had established a Christian order, the Golden Dawn or Stella Matutina, together with other British writers such as W.B. Yeats, Dr. John Dee, Queen Elizabeth's astrologer, and Evelyn Underhill, the writer on mysticism. Samuel Liddell Mathers, pen names, MacGregor, Comte de Glenstrae, also belonged to the group. At the time of the Constitution in 1890, the order purposes were specifically religious, to establish closer and more personal relations with the Lord Jesus, the Master of Masters. He is and ever must be the ultimate object of all teachings of our order. Its successes in the conservative British society was rapid and impressive, and soon other intellectuals who were not Christian asked for membership. Rich and aggressive, they brought forth foreign patterns into the order, such as Satanist, Masonic, Rosicrucian. One of the members, Aleister Crowley, was a Satanist and broke away in 1905 to found his own order, the Argenteum Astrum, the Silver Star. Another non-Christian was Dr. Israel Regardie, who edited 4 impressive volumes describing the Golden Dawn rituals. None of the Christian teachings were included in Regardie's work, and he who researches the Golden Dawn on the basis of Regardie's 4 noticeable volumes arrives at the conclusion that the order was everything but Christian. For instance, neo-pagan, Kabbalistic, geomantic, alchemist, etc. Despite Crowley's and Regardie's aggressive influence over the group, Bram Stoker remained loyal to the basic principles of the order and never departed from his original statements. At the same time, he responded with much sarcasm to those who changed the order rules. Some critics even pretend that the character he depicted in the bestseller Dracula was an allegory whose underside structure applied to the entity which acted subversively. There they are. Oh, that's the Vlad the Impaler. Against the Christian teachings of the order. In Bram Stoker's view, this world is evil, and the power which made it is evil too. This is one of the biggest mysteries in the prehistory of the Bible, and everything connected to it is nothing than speculation, nothing more than speculation, I assume. However, some allusions in the scripture seem to support Stoker's views. According to the Bible, the devil is the master of this world, and he therefore was the single power entitled to offer Jesus in temptation all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. Matt 4:8. In St. John's Gospel 12:31, The devil is called ruler of this world. In Corinthians 2:4, St. Paul calls the devil God of this world. The good God lives far away in some distant heaven, and this is why Jesus told his followers that his kingdom was not here, but in heavens. To revenge the injustice made to the order, Stoker designated in Dracula all those who changed its Christian principles and put them in the world of Satan. To some extent, they meet the requirements of this world. In St. John's Gospel 8:44, Jesus tells the Jews that their father is not God, but the devil. This ancestry explains why the Jews have a supernatural power of making money, oh no, and are the masters of this world. It explains also why those who are not Jewish are poorer in material goods. Stoker had been always aware that Jesus was not accepted by the Jews as one of their prophets, despite the fact that all his teachings are based on the earlier Jewish prophets' teachings. One of the reasons of this rejection was that Jesus declared something very peculiar. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill, Matthew 5:17, which meant he came to bring a better understanding of the old law, the Old Testament. In other words, he came to show the right way to heavens, i.e., to the kingdoms of the good God. Therefore, for Stoker, he whose behavior follows the rules of the Old Testament only, as Crowley and Regardie did, can never come into harmony with the good God's principles. Hence the antagonism between him and the group headed by Crowley and Regardie. He resented fully the aggressiveness of the non-Christians and depicted in Dracula one of his enemies, possibly Israel Regardie, figure 11. Not this again. Let me pause instead of searching for pages. Well, shit. Imaginary rendition of how Bram Stoker would have visualized his blood-loving vampire Dracula after a flyer of doubtful origin. What the hell does that mean? Oh, man. This is clunky. Oh, well. I should have paused it, but whatever. Dracula indeed does not belong to the world of God. His account and is rich. In other words, he belongs to the masters of this world and runs away when he sees the cross, the symbol of Jesus. To put it bluntly, Stoker's vampire is an archetype, the foe of Christianity, a symbol. In literary terms, Stoker's vampire is an allegory. In contrast with the symbol, which simply stands for something else, the allegory should also include an extension of its second meaning, an analogous structure of ideas and events, or coherent analogies between characters and abstract ideas. Stoker's vampire is an excellent extended metaphor for two universal narratives of the highest literary value, which explains its worldwide success. One is to be found in a legend that links the vampire to the cursed peeper who has offended God, the wandering or eternal Jew, as described later in this work in the story of the mysterious Count of Saint Germain. The second refers to the vampire's bite, its thirst after blood, an analogy with the sexual intercourse done at random. By the vampire's bite, the girl's body is drained of blood and the girl loses her real life. She becomes in turn a vampire. In a sense, this is true for any virgin who accepts a sexual intercourse. Without marriage, she is lost for the spiritual life. In other words, she is desecrated, defiled. In truth, this is the semantic sense of the verb to deflower. It is remarkable that both extensions of Stoker's metaphor, offending God and sex without marriage, are abhorred by any true Christian. In order to protect virgins from desecration in Stoker's allegoric language from the vampire's bite, it is recommended to any girl or righteous woman to wear a cross at her neck, even if she is not Christian, because the cross scares away the vampires, whether real or disguised. The vampire, as we know, is a corpse provided with unnatural lifelike forces by an expert in witchcraft. In the daytime, the vampire is required to sleep and stay in coffin in cadaveric rigidity. He leaves his grave at midnight, usually when the moon is full, seeks out a victim, preferably a young female, and sucks her blood. The victim becomes, in turn, a she-vampire. Soon after the biting, a vampire has power over the humans until dawn. Then he must return to his grave and become a corpse again. The vampire's face is white like chalk. His eyebrows meet over the nose. He has fangs. The canines are somehow protuberant. The eyes are phosphorescent, usually reddish, and have an hypnotic gaze. Also, the vampire is strong and handsome. When he meets a prospective victim, customarily a girl or a young woman, the vampire first tries to hypnotize her. She is attracted by the monster's manliness and waits to see what happens. If she waits more than a few seconds, she is caught by the hypnotic power of the monster and becomes faint. At this moment, the vampire launches his main attack. He thrusts the fangs upon the victim's neck and greedily sucks her blood, then goes away idly, leaving the victim tired out and in a state of torpor. When she wakes up, the woman feels exhausted and bears two small round marks in her neck, the traces of the fangs. She becomes in turn a vampire and looks for male victims. The hunt of vampires for women and of she-vampires for men is allegorical for one of the seven capital sins, fornication. In the New Testament, fornication, immorality, libertinism is severely condemned. Sex is considered the crowning of love between the spouses, and therefore it is accepted inside the marriage only. Also, it is the holy act of procreation, of bringing holy life on earth. Any sex activity outside the marriage means a degradation of love, a defilement. The vampire looking for blood is thus an allegory, meaning the non-Christian or the fallen Christian who looks for cheap, meretricious pleasures at random. If in doing so he brings life on earth, this life is unholy. If a female finds herself in front of a vampire, real or disguised, if she realizes what is going to happen to her, in other words, if she becomes aware that the vampire intends to hypnotize her, she has a chance to escape if she quickly lifts up the cross she wears at her neck and thrusts it before the cruel eyes of the vampire. No other force is able to scare the vampire away. Some girls who do not know where the vulnerability of the vampire lies hang all sorts of trinkets at their necks, such as stars, keys, whistles, etc., without realizing that the cross only can help them in the case of a danger. A vampire has no image in the mirror because, in fact, he is a mere ghost, a being without a body in the human sense of the term. This fact has been noticed by all our ancestors, has it now? An old custom requires that mirrors be covered in the room where a dead person lies in state before burial. For the same reason, no genuine funeral home has mirrors, and few people know why. This is nothing else than a delicate attention to the soul of the departed. It is believed that the soul still lingers about the body soon after death, without understanding what happened, why the family cries. The custom is intended to spare the soul the trouble of realizing too soon by looking in the mirror that it has no more a body. Not all corpses can be changed into vampires. It is necessary that some evil spirit, a vicious phantom, enter the dead body following a specific event that works like a catalyst, allowing the phenomenon to be accomplished. There are several such catalysts as described in the old books of black magic. It is written, for instance, that those who commit suicide, as well as those who practice witchcraft, may become vampires. Also, If a black cat crosses the road in front of a funeral party in transit, the corpse in the coffin may be taken over by an evil spirit, as in the case of Prince Vlad II, Dracula the Impaler. Oh man. The term vampire is of Slavic origin and was brought to Europe by Russians and Ukrainians. It has been adopted at the end of the first millennium by Hungarians for linguistic reasons, but also because of their ancestral love for blood. As it is known, even today, the Hungarians like to eat some sausages prepared with florid blood. Not rarely they eat raw meat. When their ancestors, the Huns, invaded Transylvania, they sickened the native Romanians with their habit of eating raw meat. Before any trip, the Huns used to place the raw meat on their horse's back under the saddle and pound it for a while during the trip to make it tender. After 2 or 3 hours of riding on horseback, the meat was ready for eating because it became fragrant and tantalizing as it had absorbed the horse's sweat. As good hosts, the native Romanians struggled in vain to dissuade the Huns and later their descendants, the Hungarians, from eating that way. Only when their king Stephen christened them in the 9th century was this habit officially banned. It was forbidden to Christians as well as to their predecessors, the Jews, to eat bloody meat. However, a national custom with roots in the ancestors' life cannot be eradicated completely. Atavism is present in Hungarian everyday life and appears not only in their culinary preferences but in their talents too. For instance, nobody had the natural gift to interpret Dracula better than Bela Lugosi, who was a Hungarian from Lugo, Romania. From Lugo, Romania. Then Bela Lugosi, who was a Hungarian from Lugoj. I thought that was a fucking nothing. Never mind. Lugoj, Romania. Many tried, Americans as well as Italians. Christopher Lee as well as Frank Langella, all to little avail. Bela Lugosi's atavic talent couldn't be surpassed. When he made Dracula, you could read the greed for blood in his reddish eyes, and his cruel lips, and in every pore, even the tips of his rapacious fingers. Besides, Bela Lugosi was a careful reader and studied Bram Stoker thoroughly. In 1931, when he obtained his first role as Dracula in a play by Hamilton Dean and John Balderstone, a report says he wore a Star of David on his chest. He was fantastic as Dracula with the star on the chest, and his success was instantaneous. At that time, in 1931, Hitler was still unknown. The advent of Nazism in Germany happened in 1933, and this report might be true, but later, Lugosi never wore the star again because of the anti-Semitic bias it implied in the interpretation of that role. I'm going to stop there just because I'm tired and I'm starting to falter in reading, so why continue? How many pages are left? Not many, but that's okay in this chapter, but we'll get to it later. I am tired. Goodbye, bruv. Goodbye.